Hi there, I'm Loretta Hayes from Hayes Sewing Machine Company in Wilmington, Delaware. And welcome back to our creative videos. Today we are going to do a really quick wall hanging. Could also be done with different fabrics as a baby quilt. And we're going to do a technique which is a quilt as you piece technique. So what we're doing is super cute. We're using the Cabin Fever Villa Rosa design pattern. So that's where I got the measurements and what I needed to do to cut for my borders. And we're doing the center of this with a panel. And so the panel we picked is super cute. I don't know if you can see it. Let me get the shine off of it, Pam. Can you see it there? Okay. So there were the hardest part of this project for me was picking which one I was going to put in the center. So there are options. So this is the one that I'm actually choosing. And interestingly enough, this panel is almost exactly 14 inches square, which is exactly what we need for the center. So yay. So I'm going to do the little beach huts, but other options, you have the little Vesta, which is super, super cute. And then we have...
Oh, for the campers in the world.
Yep, so we've got the little glamper going on there. And then we also have the beachy VW bug.
That's
so
cute.
Honestly, you could do 4 of these. Super, super simple. These would be cute too, you know, thinking about it as pillows or placemats. For your beach house, because beach weather is coming. All right, so to do this technique, what we need to do first is we need to get a piece of backing that is a little bit larger than our quilt top. So if we read the dimensions on the pattern, it is going to be finished 37 inches wide by 47 inches long. So I cut 1.5 yards of backing. That gives me a few inches top and bottom and also side to side. I then took my backing, and don't you think my backing is so appropriate? Okay, it's the batik and it's got the little palm trees on it.
Yep.
So it pressed the backing really well and stretched the backing so that it was nice and flat. I then took 505 spray and sprayed the backing. Can you see that?
Yep.
All right. And, you know, when you do the spray, it's definitely a nice soft circles, not a, you know, you shouldn't be using half a can to put this on. We just needed enough to hold the batting and hold it well enough that when we curl it up to sew, it's not going to cause a problem. So we then took our batting, and any low loft batting will work. I chose to work with the Warm and White, which is 100% cotton. What's nice about this batting is you can quilt 10 inches apart. So that's really good. We're going to be, you know, doing some wider spacing for our piecing. The next thing you need to do is you get this all done nice and flat. You need to know where the middle of the square, the rectangle is. And I don't do anything exotic. I don't even measure. I literally take and fold the batting and the backing from corner to corner diagonally. So I folded it this way, I folded it all the way down to the bottom. I then opened it up and I took a water erasable pen and I drew a line on the diagonal. I then did exactly the same thing going the other way. So when you fold it, the edges aren't going to line up. You're just folding from corner to corner. And it creates this X, which tells us really, really accurately where the center is on our quilt.
All right, let's see if I can pick that up. All right.
Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our panel and we're going to fold it in half lengthwise. and we're going to fold it in half widthwise. Now, the one thing that I need to pay attention to is the directionality of my background. Luckily, I can see the palm trees through the white of the batting. So I would really like to have it so that the palm trees are facing up when we're done this project. So we'll come in, I'll take my fold, and I will land that in the center. And you can just kind of put a thumb on it, nothing too exotic here. We're gonna go ahead, we're gonna line that up, and we're gonna take a look and see what we've got. And let me do that one more time. I just feel like I'm off.
All right, so you lined that up.
So I lined it up like that.
Yep, opened it up.
Opened it up and opened it up.
Cool.
Terrific. All right, so we should be looking pretty good. Don't worry, you're not, the blue lines are not gonna line up on the corners because this is square and this is rectangle. So that isn't the reason for the blue lines. The blue lines are simply to find the center of our quilt.
Okay.
All right, so we wanna take it and we wanna do just for this center section, I wanna come in and I wanna get this down. So I'm gonna flip it up and I'm gonna do just a little bit of spray, just a tiny, tiny bit. And I'm gonna smooth that down. And then I'm gonna flip it back up on the other side and I'm gonna do a little bit of spray. And then we can smooth that down. And pretty much at that point, we can get rid of the spray because we're not really gonna be using it.
Okay.
All right, so on your machine, you want to have a thread that is going to look pretty on the back and is going to be pretty invisible on the front. So I've chosen to work with kind of a white thread, a little bit of an off-white, but make sure you like it, you know, when you're looking at the back. We're gonna flip this around and slide that underneath our presser foot. And looking at our pattern, the first borders, can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. The first borders are going to be attached top and bottom. Seconds are side, third, fourth. So this is literally just framing the panel. So super, super simple. If you've never quilted before, this is the project to get started on. So my first two borders are going to be this cute grunge. Picks up on that kind of peachy pink. And we're going to line that up, and they're going to be lined up top and bottom. So we're going to line these up right sides together, just like a seam, like you were piecing it. But we're going to be stitching through the two layers of fabric, through the batting, and through the backing at the same time. So what do we need on the sewing machine? We've got the thread, so we're good that way. We need something to feed our batting and backing. So typically, when we piece a quilt, we take a quilt top, we layer up the batting, and we put a walking foot on. So that's what I've done this morning. I've got my walking foot on. And so one of the cool things about a lot of the more modern walking feet is there is a 1/4 inch mark right on the presser foot.
Okay.
Now, some of your machines, like this machine here, I could also have used the dual feed, that built-in walking foot. But the thing you want to watch out for if you're using your dual feed is there's lots of 1/4 inch feet available. So you can see this one here, which is 57, has got a guide on it, which normally is the bomb. It's, you know, it's exactly what we want because we run it along the edge here. But what I find when I'm doing this stitch and flip technique is the guide often drags on my batting.
Okay.
So if we're going to do a 1/4 inch foot with the dual feed engaged, we would want to work with either a 37 foot or, in my case here, a 97 foot. So that is a 1/4 inch foot with no guide. So I'm not going to have that guide dragging on the
But you also
batting.
don't have like 15 million seams either.
No, not at all. All right, so machine set up either with your walking foot or with your dual feed. Don't try this with just a regular 1/4-inch foot because you'll get puckers on the back. All right, so we're going to be lined up. We're going to tuck our piece under. And when I start with the seams, I would like to have my bobbin thread up from the bottom. And the reason why I want that is because we're going to be doing a lot of crisscrossy type seams, and that bobbin thread, if I leave it underneath, is bound to get into trouble. Murphy's Law is like really big in my life. So we're going to go ahead. I literally tap my needle down, tap my needle back up. I then go ahead and tuck my foot down again, and then off we go, stitching along. I'm doing a few little stitches just by holding it, not in one place, but just a little bit. So we get like 3 or 4 little stitches, and then off we go down our seam. And remember that when you're doing work through batting, normally when we're quilting a little bit longer, 2.5 being our normal stitch length. So, you know, usually I'll go up to 3 or 3.5 when I'm doing this technique. So here we go. We're going to cross that seam. I'm getting close to the end, and I'm going to hold it a little bit back so that I end up with some shorter stitches. Now, when you are doing a seam, normally if you have a machine like this, you would go ahead and you would hit your scissor button. But remember, we're going to be pulling your bobbin thread every single time we do that. And if you use the built-in scissor button on your machine, you're going to end up with these little bitty, teeny tiny little pieces of thread that you're trying to pull up through. So what I do is I come out and I actually grab a pair of scissors and I clip my thread. So I'm leaving my threads long. Once we have that first one done, we're going to flip it around. So just rotate the whole thing. We're going to go right sides together again. And we're going to start this process again. So lots of repetition in this particular pattern. So we're going to come in, we're going to drop our needle down, we're going to take it, we're going to pull up our bobbin thread. So pull hard, it'll come right up through the fabric. Tuck it under your foot. Do a few little stitches just by kind of holding it back, and then line it up and sew all the way down our edge. If your machine has the ability to do needle stop down, that's perfect for this, because then we can stop and we can rearrange, because you've got a lot of fabric going on here, without having to get a little hiccup in our stitch. So once again, I'm holding, and basically, you know, when I guide my fabric, I'm usually guiding on either side. So basically, I'm dropping down my thumbs and doing about 4 littler stitches. Resist the urge to cut your thread, and I tell you, it is really something I have to resist the urge. Pick up your foot, pull it out, and trim your threads.
Post-it note on your machine.
Yes,
Don't
maybe even covering the scissor button. All right, so we have got our first 2 borders on. I'm now going to hop up and I'm going to press these. So we're going to bring it over to the ironing board. And we're going to flip it over. And we're just going to press it into place. And we'll do the same thing over here. And this is one of the advantages of using the cotton batting. If I was doing this with a polyester batting, I'd have to be really careful, because with the polyester batting and a hot iron, oftentimes you kind of squish the loft out of the batting. So cotton batting's besides being much easier to use, actually have a benefit here. All right, so we have our first 2 borders in, and we have quilted it at the same time.
Yeah, I got it now.
Okay, good.
Sorry. Disadvantage of matching thread.
Okay. All right, so now we need to find border number 2. So border number 2, we're going to take and we're going to line up, once again, right sides together. And we're going to line that up on both sides of this one. So we'll come in here and the process begins again. And here's the cool thing, is as you work on this quilt, it becomes easier and easier. It's not hard in the center, but it gets easier and easier because each time you're getting less and less fabric underneath the throat of the machine. All right, so process starts again. We're gonna pull up our bobbin thread. Sure we are. See if I can pull it through all those stitches. All right, perfect. Tuck that underneath, put our foot down, do a few little stitches so that we have it nice and anchored, and then once again down the seam. And you'll notice that what I'm doing is I'm running the raw edges of my fabric right along the inside edge of this notch, and there's a little line for me to follow. So I know that I'm at my 1/4 inch seam. Now here's the question. Let's say you have an older walking foot, or maybe even a more basic walking foot. It could be fairly new, but basic. And there's no line on your walking foot. That's not a big deal. I'm pretty sure that everybody owns a Sharpie marker. So what we want to do is before you start this project, you put a little rotary ruler underneath of your foot. You line up your needle at the 1/4 inch mark, and then the edge of the ruler, you draw a line, a Sharpie line. There's no point in a project like this of eyeballing it all the way through when we can simply put a mark on our foot and we're good to go. And that mark would be great because if you're, say, sewing on a binding, you need that same 1/4 inch, so you set your foot up for a lot of things. All right, we're flipping her around. We're gonna come in and we're gonna line up on the next. So we're gonna pull up our bobbin thread. Tuck it under the foot. 4 little baby stitches, and then off we go down the seam. As you're stitching, you'll see me having my hand over here on the left. All I'm doing is kind of trying to make sure that the fabric is not dragging across the front of my table. Make sure it's nice and loose. It should flow really easily. If it feels like you're having to do what I refer to as the death grip on the quilt, then something's caught up. So pause and loosen everybody up. Come to our end, we'll do our 4 little stitches. We will resist the scissor button, and we will open up and trim our piece. And once again, we're going to go back, and I don't know if you need to come each time.
Okay. I should have a little sign. She's ironing.
Kind of like the Coyote and Roadrunner.
Yes. Yikes. So she's ironing right now. She's doing a nice job of it too.
All right. So let's lay this down so you can see where we are. So we now have
that's really
the
building nicely.
frame around our cute little border, our cute little panel. So now we've done 1 and we've done 2. So now we're looking for number 3. So number 3 for me is going to be the big kahuna boards. And the kahuna boards, in my case, have definitely an up and down. So the pointy end is the top of the board.
I'm sure there's a technical term, but the pointy end, yes.
So we're going to go ahead. We're going to make sure that is. I'm just saying, if you have a directional fabric, pay attention to it.
You don't want your frogs upside down necessarily.
So like when I do the bottom, I'm going to do the pointy end here as well. So when I flip it up, I'll have pointy ends both top and bottom.
I'm sure big wave surfers would have something to tell us.
I know. Pam and I were in Hawaii not that long ago, and we're stunned at how casual they are surfing over the barrier reef, I'm like, no, I don't think so. I'll take pictures. All right, here we go. Once again, needle down, needle up. I have my foot control programs for something else, so we will see. Let me,
Turn all else fails.
yeah, I was going to say,
Turn the
all
way.
else fails. I'm too technical, aren't I? All right, let's see if we can we'll just do that one again. All right, we'll kick it old school and do one by hand. And short little baby stitches, and then line up our edges. So once again, I can feel a little bit of drag on this left-hand side. So pause and loosen that up so everybody is flowing through. Do our little stitches, bring our needle up, trim our edge, and then flip it around, and we'll do the same on the bottom. So pointy ends are pointing up. This is good. It's always good to check it out first. Pull our bobbin thread up. And then our little stitches. And then off we go down the edge. Little baby stitches, needle up, and trim your thread. Okie doke. We'll press these. And so we are almost completed. So it's looking really nice.
Oh, that is.
Very beachy. All right. So now we're going to come in and we're going to put our fourth border on. By the way, there's 5. And so we'll lay this. So this is a non-directional one, so we can just go ahead and
It's our beach
plop
balls.
it down, beach balls. And one of the interesting things about the pressing when you are doing it on a cotton fabric, the steam tends to make the fabric stick to the batting. So the only place that I really used the 505 spray was sticking the batting to the backing and doing the center panel to kind of keep everything anchored in the middle. But I didn't find that as I was going along that I needed to do any other spray. However, if you have a fabric, particularly when you're getting to these longer borders, that you feel like, oh, that's going to go ahead and shift, once you've got it seamed and you press it over, you can raise it up and do a little bit of spray to keep it anchored down.
There you go.
But I haven't really found the need to with this. So we'll line up, we're lining up about 6 inches at a time. Get our 4 little baby stitches. And flip it around and we'll put it on the other side. And down the side we go.
I like the idea of pulling the bobbin thread up each time. That saves a lot of aggravation at the end.
Well, it's such a quick project that I can't really see me taking the threads and knotting them and putting them on a needle and sinking them into the batting. You know, we're going, this is a quick wall hanging. So pulling the bobbin thread up. It's actually a habit that I've gotten into with any quilt that I'm doing walking footwork. It's really a free motion technique. You know, because in free motion we pull the bobbin thread up before we get started. But I do find that, particularly if I'm doing a lot of walking footwork on a project, maybe I'm doing modern quilting where I have, you know, quilting every 3/4 of an inch or every inch, very channeled looking. What I find sometimes is when you come to the bottom and you cut your thread, you hold the fabric back, right? So we've got this here. So we've got it like this. So I've come to the bottom, and now I come back to up to the top, and I'm going to get started again. And in the pulling, it pulls the bobbin thread forward. And I find that I get kind of a little bit of a thread burp on the top there because it's not out the back of the machine. So it's something that, that I've been doing quite often when I'm doing modern quilting. And it's a nice technique. It works well. All right. So we now have,
That's
this
really
is
pretty.
looking fabulous.
It is.
And honestly, we could quit at this point if we wanted to, but I'm following the pattern.
But that last border would be so lonely.
Yeah, it would be so lonely. But it is super cute right now.
It is.
All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come back up to the top, and we're going to do number 5. And this is out of the even weave fabrics, which I love because they're they're solids. What happened to my voice? I think I might be a little old to break my voice breaking. It gives you a solid fabric, but more interest than a solid. And flip her around, and the last border is going on. Now, let me show you this one thing. In all of these borders, this is the first one that's done this. Do you see how I've got like a little extension on there?
Mm-hmm.
So considering I haven't been pinning anything, that's fabulous. But I think we've all established that Loretta's a little OCD.
No.
No. So what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll trim that. Now, notice I trimmed that with my scissors and not a rotary cutter because we don't want to
Yeah.
we don't want to cut through the batting on there. And so last border. Could have just left a 1/4 of an inch extending from there, but it would have bugged me.
Know thyself,
It's
right?
a sad, sad thing. Are done sewing, so we can use the scissor button.
Woohoo!
And we'll go ahead and press this, and then we'll show you what it looks like. So So in real time, Pam can tell me what the time of the video is, about
37.
37 minutes. So in 37 minutes, we have pieced it and quilted it at the same time. So all that's left is to come in. Let's flip it over so you can see how nice the backing looks. Super cute.
Yeah.
We'll do a little trim up here, and then I'll take it over to the rotary cutter and I will chop off the excess. Then I will come in and do a traditional, or for me, a traditional binding, which is a 2 1/4 inch strip, fold it in half like a French binding. I sew it on the back and flip it up to the front. And if you want more detail in that, check out our YouTube channel, where you will find a a French binding done by machine video, where I explain that in great detail. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and we will see you next time.